All right, moving on to another team in the Eastern Conference that made another whopper of a deal, and this is classic Julien BriseBois and Tampa Bay Lightning business. So certainly a deal that caught a lot of people by surprise, but again, it's Tampa Bay. We've seen this before. So Tanner Jeannot, young bottom six forward who had a great year in Nashville last year. Not so much this year. He's a great story, kind of a late bloomer. Tampa Bay gets him from Nashville in exchange for a first, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and defenseman Cal Foote. So almost an entire draft. And a young defenseman in Cal Foote. So, again, guys, we've seen this before with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, initially I wanted to just dump all over this trade because this is just way too much to trade for any bottom six player. But Tampa Bay does it every single year, and they win a cup or go deep. So I'm not going to talk too much shit. But Tanner Jeannot, he's intriguing because if they can turn him back around into the player he was last year, this year Nashville's struggling to score goals in general, so that's probably not helping him. But if he can be that guy who he was last year, then this is another Hagel or Paul or anyone that Tampa adds. It's just going to make them better because they do it every single year. But man, is that a lot of picks. And Cal Foote. I thought they liked Cal Foote.
I know. I thought they liked him too. So, not only is it almost an entire draft class, but it's a first-round pick, homegrown defenseman, a guy who they picked and developed. So
yeah, it's essentially it's two first-round picks plus all the other ones, if you look at it that way.
I get it. I understand Tampa Bay is a better team now than they were before this trade, period, because Tanner Jeannot adds to that deep forward group. But I think if you're Tampa Bay, could you not have used those assets to get a defenseman where I think is a bigger need for the team? Tanner Jeannot just seems like a luxury that, maybe, sure, you can say you can afford it if you're Tampa Bay because they seem to have done they've done that every year and it's worked out for them. They've gone to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals and they won 2 of them. But man, I think the bigger need for this team is on the back end since losing Ryan McDonough. And Tanner Jeannot, I don't think moves the needle at all. And to give up 2 first-round picks or equivalent and almost the rest of a draft class, can you imagine, and I know it's not fair to compare, but could you imagine if Kyle Dubas did that, traded Rasmus Sandin and a first-round pick and the rest of a draft class for Tanner Jeannot? It wouldn't. The conversation would be completely different, and obviously that's because of the history of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the success they've had in the playoffs. But in terms of value, straight up value, it is a disaster for Tampa Bay. And if they lose in the first round, if the Leafs somehow beat them in the first round, if they're able to get over the hump, this trade will be catastrophic for their future. It will be worse than the Nick Foligno trade in Toronto. It will be worse than anything. That's 2 first-round picks or equivalent and the rest of a draft class almost for a bottom 6 player. I know he had a good year last year. I know that. He has 15 points or something this year. It's not even close. He's not that same player. And they need to add on the back end. To me, value-wise, I get it, they're a better team now, but value-wise, they got absolutely fleeced in this deal.
If you look at just the forward core, all 12, you look at all 12 of the forwards, this is a good playoff team. Holy shit, is it good.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then you look at the D and you go, okay, maybe not so much. Maybe they'll be the ones that are overpaying on Gavrikov with whatever draft picks they have left. But yeah, it's definitely a little scary. And honestly, if I was Toronto, I'd be a little happier right now.
4 first-round picks or equivalent, plus the rest of a draft class, and 2 other homegrown prospects for Brandon Hagel, who's a good player, really good player, good. He's a legit top 6 player.
Career season.
And Tanner Jeannot. That to me is just brutal asset management. And like if you're Tampa, you don't care because you're trying to win another one while you still have these players, and then you're going to completely tear it down and rebuild, and that's fine. But just in terms of the actual value, this was a whopper. Like, just, not even close.
I'm done talking shit because they've won 2 cups in the last 3 years, so I'm just gonna.
And you know what? They'll probably beat Toronto in Game 7 again this year. And Tanner Jeannot will score the overtime winner. And I'll look like a clown. And I'm not debating. I'm not saying they're not a better team. They very clearly are now with Tanner Jeannot. Just in terms of value, it's such a bad trade.
You know, it is very lopsided. And the assets that they gave Nashville, it's nuts. But I mean, we've seen this before. Like I said right off the top, it started with Barclay Goodrow, a first-round pick. How effective was he in their Stanley Cup run the year that they picked him up? Blake Coleman, same thing. Brandon Hagel, Nick Paul, who they didn't have to give up that much for, scored 2 goals in that Game 7 victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. And now Tanner Jeannot. I am not going against Julien Brisebois and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have done this time and time again. We've absolutely ripped them for what they give away in these deals, but they've worked. They always work. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning. They do this every year. They find that gritty third-line prick that can fit into their lineup, and Tanner Jeannot is that. He's going to be great in Tampa. I agree. If they don't win in the first round, very disappointing, but I have a hard time going against Tampa because we have enough of a track record here with these kinds of deals that look so lopsided, but they work, and they know which players to go after and insert into their lineup. And Brisebois did make a good point as well that once you get by a certain point in the draft, it's a very low percentage of any of these picks becoming good quality full-time NHL players, but it's a risk. There's no doubt about it. If you're looking at this as a Predators fan, you're laughing. And you get Cal Foote as well. Like, this is perfect for the Predators who are transitioning into a retool/rebuild, but have a hard time going against Brisebois and the Lightning, man. They've done this time and time again, and it's always worked. Good point, too, about the blue line. I know that's been an issue the last couple of games with John Cooper. Nick Perbix has certainly been a nice surprise for them this season. You look at Sergachev, Hedman. They added Ian Cole in the offseason. But if they get really banged up on the blue line, that's going to be a problem for them. There's no question about it. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, I think this is going to work out somehow, like it always has for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
The last thing I'll say on this is this deal tells me 2 really key things about the Tampa Bay Lightning right now. Number 1, they want to win a cup again, this season or next. Like, this is their win now window 100%. Like, they are all in.
Yeah.
And number 2, Julien Brisebois really trusts his scouting staff to find some late round picks who are going to hit. Because if you're willing to give up that many first rounders, like, you got to trust your guys. And, you know, time has shown us that they have some pretty good scouting staff, pretty good people in their scouting staff, and they've made some pretty good picks over time. So, I mean, be confident in them all you want.
No kidding. Probably the best hockey department in the NHL. Steve Yzerman was your GM, moves on to Detroit. Brisebois takes over. Pat Verbeek, a part of that staff, now the GM of the Anaheim Ducks. So there you go.